Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. So today we are going to make a bag. This is the bag. I don't want to show too much of it before we start this video. So without further ado, let's get to the video. All right, so for this bag, we are going to need a focal print. So this is my focal print. We only need a fat quarter for that, and you will have some left over. Then you are going to need an accent fabric that you are also going to use for your strap and your lining. So here we have a half a yard of my lining and my strap fabric and an accent. And you also need a half a yard of, actually you don't need a half a yard of this one, but I am using a half a yard anyway. But you technically only need a 2.5 inch strip of another accent fabric. So it's your choice on how you want to go, but this is what I'm going to be doing here. The next thing you are going to need is an adjustable strap thing for your adjustable crossbody strap, 2 lobster claws, 2 D-rings, a tag if you're putting a tag in your bag, 3 zipper heads because it's going to have 3 zipper pockets, as well as a magnetic snap, the male and female part, and all of your closure washers. You're going to need that. And you're also going to need some zipper by the yard. I am using this right here, but you can also get away with using 3 10-inch zippers. You're also going to need some Pellon 911 FF fusible interfacing. Now you can use whatever interfacing you want. This is just the brand that I use. I'm just using a whole package because I ran out of my bolt and I needed a package of it for this project. And also some scrap cotton batting. You don't need much, just enough to do for the lining because this bag is a little bit more of a floppy style bag. So batting is the best instead of using anything else. So I'm going to put these aside for now because I really don't need them. And we're going to get to starting with the cutting. Okay, we're going to start with our focal fabric, and what we are going to do is we are going to cut off of this. I'm going to grab a ruler and a rotary cutter. We're going to cut 2 7.5 by 10.5 inch pieces. Now, as you can tell, this is directional fabric, so I'm going to go with the direction of the fabric. And I'm also probably going to use this side right here. So I'm just going to fold this in half like this so that I can cut at the same exact time. And I'm going to cut the selvage off first, just like this. I'm going to turn the whole thing around very carefully, and I'm going to line it up on a line. And I want my 10.5 inches to be this direction because I want it to be my width, not my height. So we're going to count over 10.5 inches. We're going to make sure that it's properly on a line. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And a half right here. So we're going to cut 10.5 inches. Line the ruler up, make sure everything's nice and straight. We got the line on the mat, as well as a line going straight across the top. Kind of shifted just a little, so let's adjust that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut. This piece I don't need for now. I'm just going to throw it aside. And I'm going to turn the whole thing this way, right here. I'm going to start by the straight edge up here. I'm just going to straighten it out. I'm going to make sure that this bottom half is nice and lined up. And I want both folded ends to be crossing over. We're going to go over to this. I'm just going to straighten this side up. I'll do it with a right hand cut instead of my left hand cut like I usually do on top of the fabric. We just want to be able to start with a nice straight line. So now I'm going to line this up right here. So it's not only lined up here on this side, but it's lined up here. And I'm going to count over 7.5 inches. 7.5. Make sure. So this is 5, this is 6, 7, and there's my half. So 7.5 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and make the cut. And this I'm just going to set aside again with my scraps. And now I have my 2 pieces that are 10.5 by 7.5. And they're going to go this direction. So I got to make sure they stay directional at all times because I'm making a directional bag. So now we're going to move on to our accent pieces. So this is going to be my middle accent, which where my zipper is going to go from the outside. So from this, I want to cut for now 1 strip that is 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and straighten up one side, and then I'm going to cut 2.5 inches. Make sure this is on a nice line here, going nice and straight. Makes it a lot easier when everything is cut nice and straight. And then I'm going to cut 2.5 inches, just like this. I'm going to toss that aside. I only need the 1 strip because it's going to do both sides of that. And I'm just going to, oh, let's cut the strap out of this too. See, I'm like all out of it today for you guys. We're going to cut 2 4-inch strips off this same fabric because this is for my strap as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 4-inch strips. This will also be for my lining, and I will cut that when we get to it. All right, so there's 2 4-inch strips. We're just going to set that aside because we don't need that right now. And then we're going to move on to the other accent color, which will be the top part of the bag. I'm going to open this up and give it a nice straight cut on a line, just like this. I'm going to give it a nice straightening. We're going to go ahead and cut 1 2.5-inch strip off of this. Actually, yeah, let's do 2.5. I'm not really making it up as I go. I'm kind of just going, but right there. So 1 2.5-inch strip of that. And then move that aside and let's get to the next step. Taking these 2 fabrics, both the accent colors, we're going to line them up on top of each other because they're getting the same exact cuts. That way I can cut the selvage off at the same exact time. My 2.5-inch strips. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the selvage and I'm going to come over 10.5 inches. Just like this. So we're going to come over 10.5 inches. Comes right to where the fold was, but that's okay. And now what we're going to do is build 2 units. So we're going to take the bottom part of our bag, that's 7.5 by 10.5, and we're going to put this fabric right here, one of the accents, right here, just like this. And then we're going to take that second accent fabric and go above it, like this. And we're going to sew these together. So we're going to sew this to that to this on both of these. So let's go over to the sewing machine with a 1/4-inch seam and sew those together. Here we are at the sewing machine. I'm just going to take and put this right sides together. I'm going to send it on through with a 1/4-inch seam. Back stitching at the end, making sure everything stays lined up. Move that out of the way for a moment. I'm going to go ahead and just finger press this back towards the red, just like this for now. And then we're going to take that second piece and put it right sides together with the other part of the strip. Line it up and sew it on through. And I always back stitch at the edge. This is a bag, so I try to do as much back stitching as possible. So just like that, I'm also going to press this one towards the red, just like that. So now we're going to go ahead and repeat that step with the next one. Okay, so now that we got this pressed, it should be 10.5 by 11.5. That's the measurement we are looking for. So now that you have your 10.5 by 11.5 inch units, you should have both of them. We're also going to go ahead now and interface these. So we need to cut a 9.5 by 10.5 inch piece for it. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to cut a 9.5 by 10.5 inch piece. And we're going to go ahead and take these over to the iron. And we're going to add here, these on here, center. So you want a 1/2 inch of seam on both sides and on the top and the bottom. So we're just going to center this on here and press it on. Don't forget when you're putting interface to put the rough polka dotty side. You can see the polka dots. The rough side is the side that has the glue. The smooth woven side is the side that does not. So let's go ahead and adhere these. Okay, so now that these are finished, we're going to go ahead and start with the piece that we need for our front pocket. So there's 2 sections. One is going to have a snap pocket, or magnetic snap as the pocket, and it'll be slip. And the other one is going to have a zipper pocket. That'll be the front of our bag. So I'm just going to set that aside, and this is the one that we're going to be adding a slip pocket to with a magnetic snap to. So we're going to go ahead and take, again, we're going to take the leftover piece of our fat quarter from our focus fabric, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that it's still lined up, and we're going to keep it folded in half just like this, and we're going to come over 10.5 inches and make a cut. And then actually let's straighten the side up first while we're right here, because I didn't do it on the whole thing, I only did it on half. We're just going to straighten this up just like that. Toss that to the side. Now we're going to line it up right here and come over 10.5 inches with it folded. So we want 10.5 inches while it's folded right here. So we're going to be cutting right there. So there's our 10.5. We're literally using up this whole entire fat quarter, and there'll only be one tiny strip left. So there's my 10.5 inch piece, and we're leaving it folded in half because we want it to be on the fold 7 1/4. So keep it folded just like this, and we want to come over 7 1/4 from the fold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/4 from the fold, just like this. And we're going to cut that off. So we'll have 2 little pieces like this left over, and this is garbage because that's really small. And so we should have a, in total, 14.5 by 10.5 inch piece. So we're going to leave that folded in half, but we're also going to add some interfacing to it right now. So we're going to go ahead, while we're right here, we're going to cut a 7 1/4 inch by 10.5 inch piece of interfacing for this. So I already know that up here is my 10.5 inches, just like that. So now I just need to come over 7 1/4. So we're going to come over 7 1/4, which is right where this is going to be on that line. We're going to come up to right here and cut that off. Move this out of the way. Again, that long strip is going to be used, so don't worry about that. We're going to go ahead, and I want the interfacing on this pocket to cover the whole entire pocket. So the bag is going to be facing this direction. So I want my interfacing on the bottom side right here. So it should fit exactly on there, but we're going to go ahead and iron the fold and then put it on first. So again, we're going to start by folding it in half so that you see it in the direction that you want it to be, just like this. Go ahead and press it. So that way you have a nice good crease right there. Then we're going to open it back up, and we're going to take our piece that's exactly the right size. We're going to place this in here, just like this. Let's heat it up just a little bit first so that it stays right where we want it. Don't swipe, just like lay the iron on top of it. We're going to go ahead and fold that over and then press it really good. So we're not going to really do any sewing to it just yet. We're just going to set this aside, and it's going to be going with this piece right here. And it should line up, when you line the whole thing up, it should line up and land right at the top, just ever so slightly sticking over the top, but it's really not. It's just ever so slightly. So we're going to set that aside because these pieces, we're going to do some more sewing in a minute. So let's get to the next step. Now we're going to go ahead and take our batting, and we're just going to take a batting scrap and we're going to cut 10 inches by 11 inches. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a nice straight cut right here. If I can find my cutter, because you know how things just disappear while you're working. And we have two 10 by 11 pieces of cotton batting. And then we're going to go ahead and take our two outside pieces. Don't worry about your slip pocket just yet. Just put that aside. We're going to take the batting now on both of these, and we're going to put it, see all these little pokey holes? We're going to put that side down on here so that the smooth side is on the inside of the bag. And I'm going to center this on here with about 1/4 inch on each side. And we're making this one really tight. That way it's in the seam. So we're just going to go ahead and put that over there for a second. I'm going to pull some of these little strings off of here that just so happen to happen every time I make a bag with leftovers. And we're going to line this up. Oops, I want my smooth side facing out. Again, it's going to be in the seam allowance, just like this. And this one's cut just a little big, but I don't mind. Again, I want it to sit in the seam allowance, just like this, but I want about 1/4 inch at the top, which is good. And we're going to take these over now and we're going to quilt them. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt these both exactly the same. The batting should stick to everything and stay pretty good and straight. I'm going to change my stitch length to a 3. And what I'm going to do on mine is I'm going to go ahead and stitch right here next to the edge of the one seam. And then I'm going to go ahead and quilt the underside of that same exact seam, just like this. And I'm going to do this exact same thing on both pieces. So I'll go ahead and probably just fast forward you when I get to the second one. Then I'm going to turn the whole thing and I'm going to quilt on both sides of this seam. This is for decorative purposes. And then I'm going to come back over to this side and do underneath it. Just like this. And then, since one side is the front of the bag and it's going to have a zipper right here, and one side is going to be the inside of the slip pocket, I'm actually going to go ahead and quilt a little bit down here. Just probably cross hatch it in a straight motion. So just from here to here, here to here, just so that it's quilted down and stays nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in fast forward through all that. So these are now quilted, and it's just a crosshatch that runs through it with a blending red thread. I'm going to go ahead and now set the one aside because, as you can see, everything's nicely quilted down on these, just like that. One of them is going to get set aside because, again, this is the front of the bag, and that's going to get a zipper. Now we're going to take this piece, which is going to be our slip pocket, and I'm actually going to go ahead and quilt this too. But before I do so, we do have to insert a magnetic snap. To get to that magnetic snap, what we're going to do, these are exactly the same size. I did not lose any size. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold these in half and create a crease. So I just want to fold it exactly in half. I'm going to create a crease, a really good one, just like that, so I can see where my crease is, just like that. And then we're going to fold this in half and get a crease as well so that we know where our half point is. And I want my crease to be somewhat right here because that's how I know where the center is. So I'm really pushing down on that so that I can see that crease mark with the fabric. And now what we're going to do on both these pieces, because they're exactly the same size, they line up at the top where they're supposed to. On both of these, we're going to come down right here like this. I am going to come down 3/4 of an inch right here. I'm going to look for my crease at 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to take a friction pin and I am going to put a dot right on my crease 3/4 of an inch down from the seam. Oops, that's 1 inch, sorry. 3/4 of an inch down from my seam. Right there. Trying to pay attention. So right here, I'm going to make a nice bright dot that I can see right there. So on this, I'll move that to the side. On this one, I'm going to turn it over so that I'm on the wrong side, and 3/4 of an inch down from the top fold in my half point where I marked my center, just like that. I'm going to put, can't even see my crease anymore, right here, 3/4 of an inch down. So that's about it right there. And that's my crease. And we're going to go ahead and make sure by putting these right sides together, lining it up, I'm going to make sure both of my dots are in the same spot, and it does look like they are off a bit. Right there. Making a really good crease mark so I can see it. So I have a really good marking. So I'm going to start with this right here. I'm going to take my female end and my little piece that's going to go on it. Put it right here over that marking that I just made. I'm going to make my side marks, centering over my circle, as you can see down here. I have my side marks, and then I'm going to take a super sharp seam ripper right here, and we're going to poke through the whole entire thing and carefully, I use my nail along the seam ripper like this, and carefully push up. And I'm going to poke into this next one, if I can get it through, and then use my fingernail and carefully push up, but not too far, enough to be able to fit the magnetic snap right into those holes, just like this. And then on the back side, you should have your pieces stick out. We're going to slowly stick this on here and press it down. And I sometimes even just grab it and make sure that they're as flat as they can be, just like this. And I always, always cover the metal with a piece of interfacing. So I just grab a scrap square of interfacing, just like this, and then I take it over to the iron and press that on. So now I should have my magnetic snap, and it's hidden back here, so nothing pokes or anything from the inside the bag. It'll never come undone. So now I'm going to do that same procedure on my upside down side. So you can see my marking. I'm going to take another washer. I'm going to stick it over my marking just like this. I'm going to draw my lines on both sides in those pieces, Same procedure, I'm gonna open it up and it should be on the side that your interfacing is on. And I'm going to stick my seam ripper through and carefully rip a small hole, just like this, on both of those. Then I'm going to take my male end of my magnetic snap. I'm going to carefully poke it through both those holes, just like this. If I can get it through, it's not wanting to poke the other side. Open it up. Oops. And then put the washer on it, just like this. Fold the washer down. You can use pliers if you need. And then the same as the last piece, I am going to actually put a piece of interfacing over that, like this. I'm going to take it over to the iron and I'm going to press it. So now it should look like this and have the male end. And then if you open it up, there's going to be the interfacing, and then I put that second piece to cover my magnetic snap. So now we're going to take this piece over and we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and quilt this the same exact way that I quilted this. And my stitches will line right up and the magnet should not be in the way. As you can see, the magnet lines away from the stitching, so nothing's going to be in the way. So let's take this over and quilt it the exact same. All right, so now that that is done, we're going to go ahead and hook this magnet to its counterpart right here. Everything should be nice and center. And what I'm going to do is just stitch 1/8 of an inch down both sides of this so that I can at least hold this down nicely. All right, so that back side, and you could have stitched along the bottom if you wanted to. I just left mine open because it's going to get stitched with the bag. But now we have a slip pocket, everything lines up, and this is the rear of the bag. So let's place this aside and grab our other piece because we are now going to do a zipper pocket. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So for this, you could either do your pocket this, which I think I'm going to go ahead and do, but you can also do it your other accent color. It doesn't really matter which one because I gave you enough yardage to just do whatever you want with it. It's kind of more like a build as you go. So I'm going to go ahead from this accent color so that there's more of this in the bag. I'm going to make a piece that is 8 inches. So we're going to come over and cut an 8-inch strip off of here, just like this. So here's 5, there's 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to go ahead and make a 8-inch cut, just like that. And then I'm going to place this back aside, and we're going to go ahead and open this up and cut the selvage off. And then we're going to cut a 7 1/4 piece off from, actually, let's do it from the fold, because that's easier. It's an already folded pocket at the bottom. All right, so I'm going to come over 7. So this is 5, 6, 7, and 1/4. 7 and 1/4 at the fold. So that would be 14 1/2 inch piece. So it's 7 by 14 1/2. So we're going to take that from the fold. We're going to go ahead, and here's our front piece where it's going to go. We're going to place this on here just like this, and you're going to align it to where your pocket would be on the inside of the purse, no far down. Oops, there you can see. No much. You don't want it that far down, but you don't want it that far high. So we're going to stick it about right here. It's going to go right sides together. It's equal with both sides. And if you want to measure, you can. I mean, it's about 1 1/8 inches on this side and 1 1/4 1/4 on that side, so I can just adjust it just like this. We're going to leave enough hanging up the top, and we are going to pin this in place and draw some lines. So let's go ahead and put a pin here and a pin way up here, just to hold it in place. We don't want to lose anything, and we're going to bring this so where you can see. Let's adjust this. Okay, we're going to use my little ruler. And what we're going to do is from the top, you're going to measure and find your halfway point. So that's about 1.5 inches. So now you want to go up to 1 1/4, just like this. Even though my pin is in the way, I can still see where my 1 1/4 is. And you're going to take a pin, and this is exactly the size I need so that I can go a mark right here, draw a line from my 7 marking to my 1 marking. And then we're going to just turn the ruler and put the little 1/2 inch mark right here, line everything up again, and draw a second line. Just like this. I know I'm kind of blocking the camera. So your marking should be 6 inches from edge to edge, just like this, and a 1/2 inch apart. So I'm just going to put like a little line right here because I'm going to be drawing or sewing on the sides, and we should have a 1/2 inch wide marking, and we're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around this. So let's take this to the sewing machine. Okay, so what we're going to do, this is the part a lot of people get confused about. So it should be attached right sides together. I take my ruler and I literally line the 1/4 inch mark up, and I slice with my rotary cutter, not from edge to edge, just I open it up all the way through so that I have a slit like this. Then what I do is I take a pair of really sharp snips, and let me see if I can do this in front of the camera. I come down to about right there, and then I snip a V at the end, and I come right to the stitching, but I do not cut, oops, right in the camera. I do not cut the stitching. I just come right to it, and my sharp scissors allow me to do that. So again, I'm going to come right here, just a little bit more. I'm going to come right up to the stitching, but not the stitching. I'm going to do this on the opposite side, right up to the stitching, but not the stitching. Just a smidge right there. There we go. And now what we do, this is the part that everyone gets confused about, is we take this whole entire unit and push it through that hole. Push it through the hole, just like this. Okay? And we're going to take over to the iron, and we are going to flatten this whole thing out to where that seam is nice and straight all the way around that opening, and you only see the red on the front. So we're going to flatten that out over at the iron, and I'll show you. All right, so here at the iron, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can lean it up this way like this, and then roll this back and use your fingers to see where that seam is, okay, to where you have no yellow showing from the front or whatever your other color is, and then take your iron and go over that. It's not a foolproof thing. I mean, there'll always still be some color seeping through. And then you can either come from the back side like this and just roll it with your fingers until you have it nice and flat, and press like this. And you can do the same thing with the top to where you see red on the back. That's the best way to hide the front or the inside fabric from the back fabric. And there we have it nice and flat. For you, you can see some yellow, but for me, the position, you don't see it. So we're going to take this over. We're going to cut ourselves a 7-inch zipper, and we are going to attach a zipper, and I will show you how. So this might be a little challenging for me on camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to split one end of my zipper, just like this. I'm going to take one of my zipper heads and I want it to where, like you're going to zip a zipper, turn it around. And since this is from my angle, you're going to see. So I'm going to slide one side in like this. And I'm not as good as you would think with this. I really struggle, but we're going to do this as best as we can. And I'm going to slide that other side. See, every time I do that, slide one side in, then slide the other side in. Try to push it up a little. That way they're kind of equal. Drop the thing and then hold both sides and pull like this all the way to the other side. And then I'm going to open that opposite side, and because you can see that it kind of adjusted it. This is why I have a little bit over 7 inches. I'm going to take this over the sewing machine and I'm going to seal this end right here so that I can't pull the zipper end off. So now I have that sealed. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and attach this zipper. You can do the other end if you want to. It's going to get stitched down anyway, but we're going to attach this zipper now on the underside, faced forward and to the right. So it's going to go back here like this. You can use tape, you can use pins, you can use glue, you can use whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and use some zipper tape. So I'm literally got some double-sided tape on here. I'm going to peel off an edge. Oops. We want the tape to stick to the zipper as best as possible. Peel off both sides, just like this, exposing the glue part of the tape. And we're going to lay this down. I'm going to center that zipper just like this so that I can take my bag and lay it right over this, center on that zipper, just like this. And now it's stuck down on this side, and you can see I have a little bit of zipper sticking out, but that's okay. It's going to get stitched anyway. And since I sealed this end, what I'm going to do to stitch this down is I'm literally going to move my zipper out of the way a little bit. I'm going to start right here on this end, and I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So let's go to the sewing machine. All right, so we're going to go ahead. No zipper foot needed. We're just going to line this up under here. I'm going to go 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to back stitch right here. And I am going to come up to about right here, right at the zipper. I'm going to lift my foot. I'm going to close the zipper and finish the rest of the way around until I come to the area where I started. Come right here. Oops, we need one more stitch. One more stitch right there. There we go. Pivot. Turn. Oops, let's go back a stitch. That was a little far. And go down this side now. Move the zipper out of the way. One more stitch, turn it. One more stitch right there, turn it again, and go right up to where I started, back stitch, cut thread. I always come around to the back side because it always leaves a thread. And then I am going to double stitch around this. So I always stitch again a second time, about 1/8 of an inch away from my first stitch line. So this time I don't need to mess with the zipper. I just line it up. This is just for, I don't know, the looks of things. I think it looks aesthetically pleasing. That's my own personal opinion on this. I'm going to snip away that first stitch. And I always just line it up and go. And then I back stitch where I start. Just like that. I always turn it around, I cut that thread, and you can see that now the zipper does not have any lip, so it can't be grabbed or anything. And we're gonna go ahead and seal that zipper so that you can see its functionality. The double stitch looks fantastic. That's just the way I like it. And now we're gonna go ahead while we're here and we're gonna find some snips. I'm gonna fold this out of the way, just like this. And I'm going to snip away excess zipper from both sides using my scissors. And then I'm going to go over to this other side again. Just going to move this out of the way. I don't want to cut that. I just want to cut away any excess zipper because I don't need a ton of it sitting back there in the bag. And now we're going to go ahead and seal the inside of this pocket. So bring the bottom of the pocket up to the top, just like this. We're going to unzoom you just a little so you can see. So bringing that bottom part up to the top, we're going to go ahead and fold that out of the way. And we're going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam, just like this, and seal this top piece. I'm going to back stitch first, reline it back up because it likes to adjust being yanked on. And then I'm going to go ahead and fold the side over, and I'm going to stitch from one side up here, back stitching all the way down. And then I'm going to do the same to this side. So I'm just going to fold that out of the way. I'm going to come under here, back stitch. I'm going to reline this up because it wants to move when you yank on the zipper part as it's folded, especially once you're almost fully sealed. Stitching all the way down. And there we now have a zipper pocket right here, fully sealed. It doesn't even have a seam on the bottom because it was done at the fold for the front of the bag, and it has that accent color so that it's used more than once in here. Closes nicely. It's nice and clean. You don't need to cut anything away from the back. And that part of the bag is now finished. So let's get to working on making the lining. Okay, so now we're going to cut the lining. We're going to go to our nice straight side, which we had, just like this. And we're going to cut a 10-inch piece. So 10 would be right here. There's 5 and this is 10. So we're going to cut a 10-inch strip off of this fabric. And now we're done with that. And we're going to go ahead and open this up. And we're going to cut from this end right here. We're going to line up that selvage and cut that off. Let's go right here because I'm using markings that I know. So I'm going to cut a nice straight selvage off, and then we're going to come to 11 inches. So here's 6, and this makes 11. So we're cutting 9 by 11, 2 of them at the same exact time. And these are going to be starting of our lining. I'm going to throw the other piece aside. One side of the lining is going to get a zipper pocket. The other side of the lining, I need to press these obviously, is going to get a slip pocket. So let's work with the slip pocket first. So there was a leftover piece of that we cut from that pocket from the inside of that front piece. We're going to take that leftover piece and we're going to cut off the selvage just like this. So this is that 7-inch piece, or 7.5, I think is what it is. Nope, it's 7. We're going to cut 8. That's the 8-inch piece. Sorry. We're going to cut that 8-inch piece, the selvage off, and we're going to come over to 10 inches, which I'm going to reline back up so that I can watch my line and go, okay, this is 10 inches right here. We're going to come over to 10 inches, just like that. And I'm throwing things off the table now. And then we're going to turn both those pieces, and we are going to make it 6 inches tall. So there's 5 from my ruler and 6 with the 1 inch left over. 6 inches tall. We are going to turn these right sides together just like this, and we're going to go ahead and sew down both sides, making it into a tube. So with a 1/4 inch seam, right sides together, we're going to make a tube. Turn it around, do the opposite side. And now we should have a tube that if we reach in and pull out, we shall have a piece that looks like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to the iron, and I'm going to press it on that line right there, nice and flat, and then I'm going to take this bottom one and the same exact thing. I'm going to go press this flat on those lines. I'm going to spare you that part of the ironing till we come back over to the sewing machine. Now we should have a nice flat piece that looks like this. We're going to take, it doesn't really matter which side because it's both exactly the same. We're just going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away on one side. Right here, across the top to hold that down. Just like that, just the top for now. And now we're going to take and line this up on our lining. Here we are at our lining fabric. We're going to go ahead and line this up. We're going to center it on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the stitched part at the top, and I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to come up 2 inches, just like this, from the bottom, which I already had it just naturally sitting there. We're going to come up 2 inches from the bottom, just like that, and it's going to stay right here. We're going to go ahead and pin this in place. So I'm just going to throw a pin right there and a pin right there. We're going to pin it in place just like that. So it's 2 inches from the bottom with your stitched part on the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to separate this into 2 pockets. I'm going to turn just a little sideways so that I can get this correctly. We know that this is 10 inches right here. So we're going to line this up. The center of 10 inches is 5. So we're going to take a friction pin and put a mark at 5 inches. I'm going to come down just a little bit, put a mark at 5 inches, come down just a little bit, again marking at my 5-inch point, and at the bottom again one more marking. Then you can turn it and make a straight line from top to bottom just like that. And we're going to go ahead and sew from this bottom corner so you can see that we're going to actually finally put the stitch on the bottom. We're going to sew from this bottom to here, up, 1 stitch over, back down, and I'm going to back stitch when I get up here because of the hands in and out of the pockets. We don't want them to rip. And then back across the bottom. So let's go to the sewing machine and sew this. So again, I'm going to come to the bottom just like this. I'm going to start right here at the bottom, 1/8 of an inch from the edge, back tack. I'm going to sew all the way, 1/8 of an inch from the edge to that line. I'm going to turn it like this, pivot, and I'm going to sew up that line to this top piece. I'm going to come to this top, and I'm going to back stitch right at the stitch line quite a few times. I'm going to pivot again, take 1 stitch over, back stitch, 1 stitch forward, turn the whole entire thing and stitch 1/8 of an inch from that all the way down. Stop right at that bottom, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'm actually going to back stitch right there and then go the rest of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and, just because, 1/8 of an inch, back stitching right here, and turn it around and do 1/8 of an inch right here, back stitch, coming all the way to the bottom, just like that. So when I remove my pins, I will have a slip pocket with 2 pockets, just like that. Now, I always add a tag to my bags, which I need to find. I'm just going to center it about right here, and I'm going to stitch that down. You don't need to see that. All right, so now we have my tag and my stitched on slip pockets. The next one is to do a zipper pocket on this other piece. So let's cut a 8-inch, 7-8 inch-ish zipper and do this. That step from the beginning, when we put on this zipper pocket, we're doing the exact same thing. We're also cutting the 7 or 8-inch by 14.5-inch folded piece. So I'm going to go ahead and use this piece. It doesn't have to be folded because we're actually going to seal the bag this way. So we're going to come over just like this with this folded in a half piece. This one's 10 inches, but we're going to go ahead and trim everything down. I'm going to start by coming over to my 7.5-inch mark. Right there. Just like that. I'm going to toss that aside. I got to fix this side because it's not very straight. Kind of got a little wonky from moving everything around. All right, so now I should have 2 pieces right now that are 10 by 7.5, and then we're going to come over 8 inches. So there's 3, there's 5, that makes 8. Cut that off. That'll just go into my string bin. And we have now 2 pieces just like this. My iron just wants to yell at me. We're going to do the same procedure again. We're going to take one of these pieces. Actually, first we're going to go over to the iron and we're going to press this bottom piece up 1/4 of an inch on both of these pieces. So I'm going to do that real quick and I'll be right back. So both my pieces are folded up to the wrong side like that, just a little over 1/4 of an inch. They match, as that's all that matters. So we're going to take one of those pieces and we're going to put it down about 1.5 inches from the top, just like this. And we're going to line that top part up and we're going to center it. So if I was to center my piece, we just know that I have 1 inch on both sides. It's 1.5 inches down. We're going to go ahead and pin this in place so that nothing moves or shifts or adjusts while we do this next step, which I've showed you before, but we're going to do it one more time. We're going to go ahead and center this up and about, I'm just guessing right now, a little bit down like this. I am going to draw a line right here from this side to this side at 6 inches, or yeah, 6 inches wide. And then I'm going to come 1/2 inch from that like this and draw the next line like this. And then I can connect them right here at the ends. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around my drawn line, which you can't see until I move it up. So we're going to stitch around that whole entire drawn line and I'll be right back. Okay, so as you can see, I stitched all the way around. I'm going to remove my pins. They are hooked together. And I'm going to go ahead and the same procedure as last time. I'm going to line this up 1/4 inch from one of my drawn lines. I'm going to cut most of the way. So you can see it's most of the way, but I'm going to take my super sharp scissors now and cut about right there up to my stitching, but not my stitching on both sides, making a V. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn the piece around and do the same exact thing, making a V right here at the end to my stitching, but not my stitching. And I have a little tiny bit right there. And then we're going to go ahead and pass this through to the other side, same as I did with the front panel of the bag, pushing it all the way through. It should be right side out or wrong sides together now. And then we're going to go ahead and press around this, making it nice and flat, and we're going to do the same zipper procedure. So now we have a nice flat piece that looks like this. It's flat all the way around. We're going to do the same procedure, putting some double-sided tape, and we're going to put the zipper to the right, just like this. So we're going to put it on the right side, and then we're going to put the zipper over it, and I'm going to stitch all the way around. So I will come back to you when I get to the sewing machine. Here we are at the sewing machine. I'm just going to go ahead, put my foot down, and stitch all the way around. This one I am going to do the same procedure and stitch around it twice. The zipper is kind of a wide one, so my foot is in the way, but you can use a zipper foot if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and move my zipper completely out of the way. We're going to come up this side. I'm going to stop right here. Go from one side to the other. Snip away my starting point. Come right up to my stitching, back stitch, trim it right here where those little threads stick up from the thread cutter, and then I'm going to go around it a second time, 1/8 of an inch away from the original stitch. One more stitch over. And it is now stitched twice. Grab your other piece, just like this, your other piece. Make sure it's right sides together. Let's cut away the excess zipper first, because or else I'm going to forget that part. And I don't want it in the way. Cut that away, and then we're going to go to the other side and cut that away. Make sure you fold everything out of the way when you do that. It's not much zipper that I'm wasting here. I try to cut what exactly I need, but at least I don't have any lip, you know, on the zipper being stitched down twice. So we're going to put those pieces now right sides together. We're going to stitch across the top, and then the two sides leaving the bottom open. So let's stitch 1/4 inch across the top like this. Line that back up. And then turn and flip this. A lot easier than doing the outside of the bag. We're going to make sure that our pieces stay folded. And I'm going to back stitch right here at the end. I'm also going to fold this side over right here. And then sew down this side. I'm going to make sure that these two folded pieces stay right on top of each other, nicely lined up. Right when I get to the machine, I'll adjust if I have to. Back stitch. And you should have a mostly sealed pocket. So we're going to open the zipper, and we're going to look and go, oh my goodness, we have a nice big hole in the bottom, but that is what we want. So we have a nice working zipper. We're going to place this aside and get to the next step. So now we have not only both lining pieces done, we got our zipper pocket coming from the right. We have our regular slip pocket with 2 slips. We're going to move that over. We also have our outer bag part with a zipper pocket that has a folded bottom, as well as the back side of the bag with a slip pocket that is a magnetic snap. And we're going to go ahead now and choose, you could choose whatever color you want, so it can be a leftover piece from this color, or it could be one of the leftover pieces from your other accent color. It does not matter on this part, but we are going to make little tabs. We're going to pretend that this is little by folding it a bazillion times for our D-rings. So we're going to make little D-ring tabs so that we have a hook right here for our straps to go on. So I'm going to match mine with the outer color, but my straps are this color. So we're going to match this outer color for our tabs. So we're going to go ahead and make some D-ring tabs. Okay, so let's make these hanging things, I'm just gonna split this in half at the 5-inch mark because that gives me two 5-inch by whatever inch this is, but we're gonna just make, let's see how big they are. They're 2 inches. So we're gonna fold it in half like this and in half like this. And we're gonna take it over to the iron and we're gonna press it. Okay, so I also, while I was waiting for the iron to warm and putting things aside, I cut 1-inch strips from the interfacing, 2 of them, just so that I can add to this. So I'm gonna start by folding in half so that I could find my center. And I'm gonna do that on both of these. And they are oversized. We are gonna have some, waste cut off of these, but we're doing this oversized because these were from the scraps anyway. So we found now, here's the center. I'm gonna go ahead and press that to the center, and then I'm gonna turn it and press the center, and I'm going to repeat with the other one. Just like that. And I'm gonna stick my interfacing inside there, right in the center. It doesn't really matter where exactly it lands. I'm gonna fold it back in half, and I'm gonna press that so that it sticks to the fabric, becomes nice and thick. And we're gonna fold this now in half, make a crease, just like that. That way we know where our half mark is. And then we'll go ahead and do this second one. Okay, so these are our D-ring straps. We're gonna slide the D-ring inside the center, even though it's folded in half like this. I didn't want to do a thick one. We're going to slide it in the center of there, and then we're going to take this over to the machine, and I'm going to stitch as close as I can to the D-ring without stitching the D-ring. So I'm going to go as close as I can to it with my foot, and then I'm going to come up one side, get as close as I can, and then go down the other to seal this whole thing shut. And we're going to do that with both of these. So let's go over to the machine and sew these shut. To make this easier, you can actually put your zipper foot on like this. And my zipper foot is a right or left sided, so I can actually adjust the little thing and go to the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up this side with an eighth of an inch of seam right here at this edge, as far up as I can, sealing this side first. Right there. I'm not going to be able to get too close. I'm going to lift that just a smidge. Right there. And I'm going to stop it, needle down, turn the whole entire thing. And this is as close to this D-ring. I'm going to keep it pulled out of the way and cross over. I'm going to back stitch right there though. And again, I'm going to back stitch right here before I pivot to go the other way. Now I'm going to turn the whole thing and come down this side. It's going to want to get stuck on that D-ring at first. Just got to push it little by little through. So right off. So then I have a nice sealed unit like this holding my D-ring. We're going to repeat the process now with this other one. So right here at the edge, back stitch, stitch up as far as I can, even if I have to lift my foot a little as I sew. Right there. Turn the whole thing, stitch across, but I back stitch. Come over to this side, back stitch. Most of the time I do the hanging things a little bit different than this, but for this bag I'm just doing them like this. So I'm just going to kind of give it a nudge through and seal this side shut. Just like that. So I have a nice sealed right up to the edge. My D-ring ain't going anywhere, and it's not too tight that it can't wiggle and adjust and move. So there's our 2 D-ring pieces. Let's get to the next step. So now I'm going to take this other leftover piece. It's 10 inches by 2 inches most likely. Yep. And I am going to make tabs out of it. So I'm just going to split this in 5 and put the other piece away because I only need 2.5 inches each for the ends of my zipper. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put the zipper on here first. So we're going to split that. Again, I'm going to stick the zipper in this way so you can see it's hanging off. This is the way it would normally hang. I want to go this direction with my wide part up here. Slide that in just barely, not all the way. We don't want it to go too far past. And then we're going to slide the other side in. Again, I'm not perfect with this. There is a zipper jig kind of thing, and then there's some people on YouTube that use a fork. I unfortunately have tried and I just can't do it. Just give it a little bit of a pull. There we go. So now I'm going to sew this end, and then I'm going to come over here to this side, split it the rest of the way open, and then close it again so that both ends are sealed. Give me a second, I'll be right back. So my zipper was a little bit, it's like 10.5 inches. I really, because it's zipper by the yard, but you can get a 11-inch zipper and be just fine. We're going to take these pieces and we're going to fold in one side, and then I'm going to also fold in the other. So they're about 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this to the sewing machine, folding it in half like this, and I'm going to sew on both sides. So again, I'm just going to go like this. Oops, wrong way. Folding it in about 1/4 inch. I'm just finger pressing it. You could take it to the iron. That's what distracted me the last time. Like that. And then we're going to put it like this. And then we're going to go over to the sewing machine and sew on both sides. So they kind of look sloppy at first. I'm going to go ahead and trim away excess, and then a corner away, and then trim the corner away and trim away excess. I really don't need that much of a seam allowance because it's being cut off anyway. So we're going to fold it out like this, push that little corner out, push the little corner out like that, and you can see it's folded under, which is what we want. So let's go ahead and cut this one down. I literally am doing like 1/8 of an inch of seam, maybe even less. It really don't matter because it's going to be sewn into a seam. Flipping it right side out. I want all my seams to go inside. We're going to poke it out the rest of the way. My scissors aren't poking it too pokey, but it doesn't matter because that's going to be in the seam. And then we're going to take one side of my zipper to start, and we're going to straighten that out just like this. And I'm going to slide that zipper end, oops, on the camera, into this end right here. And I want it to cover the zipper, but I don't want the whole entire zipper in it. So you can see I could fold it. I don't want the whole zipper inside of it because what's going to happen is that's going to be too thick when I go to sew everything. So I'm literally putting it, I don't know, about 1/2 inch away. And I'm going to go ahead and do a double stitch across this right here on this edge, and I'll be right back. So what I have is a piece that looks like this. My stitching's kind of sloppy because I had the zipper foot on and it doesn't stitch very well beyond zippers like this in this direction. So what we're going to do now is we're going to measure over from this to this side like this. Let's move all these little pieces out of the way. I'm actually going to pull the zipper open just a little bit, and we're going to measure. As you can see, we're going to measure over to where when we slide this on, it's going to end at 10 inches. So I'm actually going to be cutting off quite a bit of zipper.
So what I'm going to do is re-sew a little bit more down in. We're going to sew, let me say about right here. So I can't see that. You guys can't see that, but I can see my little blue dot in the zipper. I'll be right back. I'm going to sew a new closure. Okay, so I have a new area. I'm literally going to cut about a 1/2 inch away from that. Just a little bit more, just in case. Okay, we're going to line this back up on the ruler, and we're going to slide this on the end, just like this. Again, it's literally just on the edge, and we want it to come out to 10 inches. So it's right, let's adjust that just a little bit, right here. So I'm going to go ahead, again, I have about a 1/2 inch of zipper in there. You can see where my finger's pushing along the edge of the zipper. I'm going to go ahead and sew 2 stitch lines across that now. And there I have a zipper with 2 tabs on the end that should measure at exactly 10 inches from side to side. So now we're going to go ahead and start putting stuff together for this bag. So let's go ahead and get all the parts we need. Okay, so we have my zipper. We have my 2 end tabs. We're going to start with my D-ring tabs, and we're going to take the inside lining and move that out of the way. And we're going to take, it doesn't matter if it's the front of the bag or the back of the bag. Either way, we're going to take the 2 tabs and this piece over to the sewing machine. Okay, so I have these 2 pieces. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I have a little ruler and I have a friction pin, just in case. What I'm going to do is I'm going to line these up to where the little corner right here touches like the half mark right here down at the bottom. And I'm going to angle it in to where I have about a 1/2 inch in. So I'm going to push that D-ring a little bit beyond. So we're going to put it at like 3/4 of an inch, just like this. Okay, because my seam is going to be a 1/2 inch and I don't want this to be too wide out. So we're going to stick this right here. Again, that corner is down about halfway and this comes up and it is about 3/4 of an inch away, that D-ring right there. I'm just going to hold it with my fingers. I'm not even going to bother with my friction pin and marking things. Now I'm going to come over here and sew that on there with a 1/4 inch seam. It's going to get sewn again. I'm going to just kind of back stitch a few times. All right, so we have that one on. Let's work on the opposite side. So I'm going to turn the whole thing around. I'm going to again put this point down here, an inside point, about halfway down. I'm going to take my ruler and come 3/4 of an inch out, keeping that point down there at the center of this, but 3/4 of an inch to the D-ring. So let's come back a little bit right there. I'm going to hold this as best as I can in place. We're going to tack this down. Just like that, so they're not going anywhere. And then we're going to trim off this excess. If you turn the piece around, you can see where your excess is. Keep it folded back, trim off that excess, and then come over to the other side and you can see it quite well. Make sure you have this out of the way because if you end up pushing it out, you're going to cut the wrong side. We're just cutting away the excess right here, just like that. And now we should have a unit that has little Y flappies like this. Now it's time to assemble the bag. So let's get started. Here's the part where a lot of people get confused. This is the back of the bag. This is the front of the bag. This is the inside of the front of the bag, and this is the inside of the back of the bag. Before we do anything, we are going to cut out an 1.5 inch square on the bottom of every single one of these pieces. So we're just going to take a ruler, and you can either mark it or you can just cut it with a rotary cutter like I'm about to do. 1.5 inches at the corner. Go ahead and cut that out. Oops, it's really right there. And then come to the other side, again, 1.5 inches, just like this. I don't normally recommend cutting towards you, but sometimes you have to. So on every single piece, go ahead and cut that out. So 1.5 inches, there, right there. Line up the opposite side, here and right here. Oops. I'm going to just take the scissors to get the rest of that. And then these two I can just layer, but I'm going to make sure that my inner pocket's out of the way. It shouldn't be in the way. The measurement should be pretty accurate. So I'm just going to line these up on top of each other and cut them at the same exact time. So 1.5 inches. Just like that. Line up the other side. And cut it out just like that. So there we have our 1.5 inches cut out on everything. It is time to assemble. We're going to start with the front of the bag, just like this. So put your front of your bag down. It has the zipper pocket. Just let that sit down. And we're going to take the zipper now. I'm going to move it out of the way a little bit. And we're going to place that to where the zipper opens from the right-hand side. Unless you're left-handed, put everything on the left-hand side, because some people carry their bag a different way. But for right-handers, we put it on the right side. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it's on the right, but I'm going to open it a little bit. I'm going to put it right sides together with that piece. And I'm going to go ahead and find some clips. And we're going to clip this in place. It is going to be 1/2 inch shorter. I am saving seam room for the push out because it's going to catch all this in the seam. Trust me, this will work. Normally I would go all the way to the end, but I realized with this bag when I made it the last time, I had way too much poking bulk, so I left it open a little bit. All right, so now that I have that on there, we're going to take the rear panel, which would be on the inside of the bag against this zipper. We don't want a big, huge, another slip or zipper pocket. We want the slip pocket. So we're going to put the slip pocket on this side, put it right sides together, just like this, line it all up. It should have been the exact same size. I don't know what happened here. Not exactly the same. It's about 1/2 inch smaller because I make my lining smaller. I'm going to re-clip these on here just like that. And now I'm going to sew along this top with my zipper foot. So it kind of sounds like I don't know what I'm doing today, but I do. So we're going to put the foot down. I'm going to back stitch. I have to lift that just a little. I don't know. This is really not working today. There we go. So we're going to sew along that zipper. I'm feeling for when I come close to the zipper, I'm going to stop with my needle down, go under, and zip that zipper back to the opposite side, just like so. Feel for the zipper, so I'm not sewing on it. I'm sewing with about a 1/4 inch seam with this thick zipper. I'm going to come to this end, see what I'm saying today. My machine just doesn't want to sew over anything. I'm going to back stitch right here. I have no idea what is wrong with this zipper foot today. Anyway, I'm going to open this up now. And now I'm going to finger press this back and then flip it to itself like this, so it's underneath, just like that. And I'm going to go and finger press this too, right here. And then you could take it over to the iron and press it down. That's what I'm going to do real quick so that it stays really down. Just watch your zipper if it is plastic or anything. This is a nylon one, so it should be good. But there are zippers with the plastic teeth, and this one's like a plastic, but it's a little bit different. So I'm gonna go ahead and press this real quick. So again, it's pressed. We're gonna go ahead and turn this around, and I'm gonna sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the zipper. I'm gonna make sure everything's out of the way. It's all nice and pressed, so it should be good. Just a nice straight stitch all the way across. Make sure that you don't, knock your zipper with any of the hitting. It would really not be good to hit that zipper with that needle. So now I have a nice top stitch holding not only the back nice and flat and flush, but the top is flat and flush too. So it looks funny because it's a little bit shorter, but I did that on purpose because of the seam allowance. Just, you'll see what I'm talking about. It really makes a difference with the zipper. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and put the next step together. All right, so now that we have this, we're going to, again, move the zipper out of the way. We're going to take the back panel now, and we're going to put that right sides together first. Just push your D-rings out of the way. If you want to clip them permanently out of the way, you can. We're going to, again, line everything up so we can put that on the bottom like this if we wanted. Move that zipper out of the way. I'm going to center up these two sides and then have 1/4 inch on each side for my zipper. And then we're going to clip this in place. Oops, don't fold. Nicely in place. You can use as many clips as you need or want, just like that. And then we're going to take this lining fabric now, and we're going to put that right sides together. This is the zipper pocketed one. Right sides together, and we're going to line that up with the zipper and clip that on. So I'm just going to remove my clips and just lift them a little so that they grab that fabric too. Just like that. So again, it's a little bit smaller, but there's a reason for that. So I'm going to go ahead now and stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance there. So you should have the back part on one side and then the lining on the other so that when you open it, it'll sew properly. Here we go. We're going to lift the foot. We're going to watch for that zipper. That way we're not going so far in. I really don't know what is wrong with my foot today for this zipper foot. It is really just struggling to sew. All right, coming up to that zipper, gonna lift my presser foot because it's easier that way. Find the zipper. It's usually between the in and outside of the bag. We're going to open it up out of the way, and we're going to continue the rest of that seam. As you can see, this is not a good day for a zipper foot. All right, so now that that's done, we can open this up. I'm going to finger press for now this out of the way so it's back, and then turn the whole thing around, find this part of the bag, and open that up. And it opens pretty darn good with these wider zippers, but I'm going to take it over to the iron real quick and just give it a little press so that it stays down, and then we're going to top stitch that. So it's nicely pressed, super open. I'm going to deal with my zipper foot one more time. For some strange reason, it's just not doing what it's supposed to. See, not catching the fabric. I don't know what is wrong with it today. All right, so I'm gonna back stitch a little, come across. I'm also gonna watch out for my D-rings. I don't want to hit them at all, so they're completely out of the way. Back stitch at the end, and you can see that I have a gap now between here, but now the top and the back are all stitched just like we wanted. Everything is nice and flat. So now let's just sew this bag together, and the only thing left after that is to make the strap. What we have looks like this. What we're going to do is we're going to take, and we're also going to make sure that our zipper is open as long as everything's out of the way. And if you want, on my last few attempts with this bag, I actually took a pin and I pinned right here through, oops, just this piece only, because I was able to get it out after stitching it down, to hold my D-ring right there so it doesn't flap open and I don't hit the D-ring when I am sewing this closed. So I'm using really long needles to stitch this to stay right here, and it's on the outside of the bag so I can pull them out when I'm done stitching all the way around. So we're going to put these two right sides together, and then we're going to put the bottom of the bag right sides together as well. What we're going to do is line it up, and we're going to put some clips on it all the way around like this. Oops, they're flying everywhere. Turn the whole thing around, put some clips again on this side. All right, and then we're going to take where the zipper tabs are, and we're going to fold that with our fingers towards inside the lining, and we're going to line up. I might have to move this out of the way. We're going to line this up where these two ends come together right there, and I'm going to clip that into place right here. And I'm going to do the same with the other side. I'm going to fold it in like this, line those two ends right here. Everything's folded in, and I'm going to put a clip on it. And then I'm also going to clip my lining together now, like this, that, this, and like that. And then I'm going to go back to this top part because I'm lining up seams here. And on this side, I'm going to make sure that these two seams are lining up right here. Make sure that it's there and it's nice and good. And I'm going to go to this side also and look at that bottom seam just to make sure, and make sure that that is lined up. It's pretty much the stitch lines that are lining up, because remember, this sticks up just a hair, but you can see if it's lining up nicely. And it was the whole time, it should. All right, so there this is. I'm going to put a couple more clips on it. Right here and right here. Just like that. And we're going to take this over to the machine, and I'm going to swap my foot back out and put the other one back on because it's not sewing very good and it doesn't really matter. And we're going to stitch around this, leaving an opening right here. So since the lining is smaller than the outside of the bag, what we're going to do is sew a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to put this down here. I'm going to start on this side. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to leave my needle down, bring this side up to it, and back stitch, sewing a 1/4 inch seam. And then as I come up to here, my zipper is open, right? I got to always make sure because I seem to always have issues with accidentally leaving it closed. Okay, no, it is open. I made sure to tell you guys that. Anyways, we're going to come up to this, and I'm going to make sure one more time because I pulled that pin that it's lined up where it's supposed to be. I'm also feeling for my D-ring. So I'm going to come up right here to this intersection. Like I said, it catches. There's no reason for it to not. And I'm going to just carefully tilt the whole thing, stitching kind of sideways until I get to a 1/4 of an inch again. So I'm at a 1/4 of an inch now on the outside of the bag. And I'm going to back stitch right here at the end. I'm just going to lift my foot up, bring this side up to me, 1/4 inch seam. This is the bottom of the bag, so sometimes I back stitch, here and there.
really tying it on there. And we're going to come over to this side, 1/4 inch seam. So all the way. Watch out for your D-ring. I can feel it. Remember, I put pins in place. And then I'm going to move this and I'm going to do the same thing, but the opposite direction. So I'm going to come up to it. I'm going to start tilting it right now. Coming right to it and tilting it to where I am now at a 1/4 inch seam on my lining, just like this. So I'm going to go a 1/4 inch all the way down. And then I'm going to come over to this. I'm going to remove this end right here and only stitch in about 1 inch. Right there. Leaving room to turn the bag. And as you can see, they're still hooked together right here. That is going to allow me, before I do anything now, to open this up and then creating the bottom of my bag. So I'm going to flip one side to one side, the other to the other, and I'm going to go ahead, put a pin on that, and then we're going to go ahead and do the other side just like this. And which way do I have that pressed? That way. So it's automatically wanting to go that way. We're going to put a pin on that, and we're going to go ahead and sew both of these at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just going to try to hold it as flat as I can. I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to make it nice and straight now. Keeping everything nice and straight. And then we're going to come over to this other one and do the same procedure. Lay it as flat as you can, 1/4 inch seam. And I always backstitch at the seam in the middle, just in case. Now we're going to do the same with the other side, except you need to pay attention to this. When you go to open this, remember you also have a pocket. So you need to make sure, I'm going to stick my hand through the bag, just like this, all the way through to this side. And I'm going to put my finger through there to make sure that I am not on the pocket side, because you can see my slip pocket is right there on that side. So you don't want to try to open it up on the side that the slip pocket is on, okay? You want to open it up by putting your hand in the hole of the bag and making sure that you're splitting the right correct spot on the bag. So I'm going to fold that up now. I'm going to match those ends, and they can go one side or the other. It really doesn't matter. They kind of both want to go the same direction because of the bulkness, and that's perfectly fine by me. Just going to put that together. And this side is already, but I'm going to make sure by putting my hand in the bag again, coming down to it and making sure my hand goes straight through. And again, I'm just going to stick these together, lining those seams up. I'm going to throw a pin on it for now, or a clip. And now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch this way and a 1/4 inch this way. And I'll back tack a few times because again, this is the outside of the bag. And this stops me from having to cut anything extra away from the bag, because on some bags I've had to cut away excess fabric. This prevents me from having to cut anything away. I already now have 1/4 inch seams, and everything was built a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger so that it would fit correctly. All right, so there we have it. Now we should be able to birth the bag, and I'm just going to move you guys manually, turn it down right here without even pausing you. We're going to reach in, and I don't have to snip anything away. You can snip right here away if you want. So like if you think it's going to be too bulky, snip it away, but I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to find the bottom of my bag, push it into my hand. My hand is like grabbing for it, and I'm going to pull it on through. So it's just coming through like this. It's now in the lining. Now let's pull it out of the lining like this.
It is not a very bulky bag, but it is up at the zipper area because these are pretty thick zippers. Now my lining should be out. I'm going to put my hand back in the hole and push the inside of the bag out now. And you can see I have some threads. I'm going to have to snip those away in a minute. But I'm going to use my fingers to push these corners out. We're also going to see I did not line up my stitch lines. It's rare that they completely line up, but this is lined up. So if I moved that out of the way, you can see that it's a nice straight line right there. We're going to push this side. These stitches didn't line up. They weren't exact because I did do that by eye. I'm also going to pull my pins out from my D-rings. Pins out from the D-rings. And you can see they stick out like Ys. I really want them to go closer, but they never go any closer. No matter how many times I try this, there's got to be a different way. Now I'm sticking my finger up into this area and I'm pushing it out like this. So you can see less bulk allowed me to get a full flat zipper tab right there. We're going to come over to this other side now with my finger and push that out. If I can grasp it just right. If you need to use a poker, use a poker, which is what I'm going to grab in 2 seconds to get that out. So I'm going to stick my hand in with a poker and push that out. Let's push the inside of the bag in like this. Stick the poker on this end now. Push the rest of it out. This. Flatten it as best as you can. It wouldn't have gone any flatter if I would have went another way. This side's kind of a little on the funky side. I probably should have cut away the excess fabric on that side, but that's fine. So there it is. These stick out no matter what I do. Like I said, I have tried several different ways. I cannot get these guys to stay in, but it's fine. They stick out enough to hook your bag on there, or your whatchamacallit, your purse handle. Okay, now that that's done, I'm gonna make sure everything's fitting nicely by putting both my hands in there. My lining literally is not sagging or anything inside of there. I don't even know if you can even see. So my zipper is when you open the bag, there's a zipper pocket on the back side. And then on this side, my tag and the 2 slip pockets. It worked out perfect. What we're gonna do now is, remember we left this zipper pocket open in here? I'm going to pull that zipper pocket out. See, it's open. We're going to reach in there now and grab the bottom of the bag and pull it through the pocket, just like this. So it's through the pocket now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to 1/4 inch seam this shut from this stitch right here where I ended and started to this one where I ended and started. So I'll be right back on that. All right, so here it is. I better move these pins before I poke myself. There's only one. I don't know where the other one disappeared to. Probably on the floor. Anyway, so there it is. We're going to shove that back into the pocket now and push that back into the bottom of the bag. And now all we have to do is, since this is already folded under, we just need to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away in this pocket from side to side. And as you can see, I have some threads right here and right here. I usually de-thread the whole bag when I'm finished. We're just going to pull that closed and sew 1/8 of an inch away from the edge to seal this pocket. So I'll be right back. All right, so now the inside of the pocket is sewn. There's a nice 1/8 of an inch seam. It is sealed. There is now no way but to just push that pocket inside the bag, nice and flat. I'm going to push everything. I'm going to go not only in the pocket now, I'm going to go back to the inside of the lining, and I'm going to just push my fingers out to the corners like that, pushing everything nice and flat. I'm going to close my zipper now, just like that. Everything's flat, everything's flush. When I touch the end of my bag, it's flush. We're going to take this pocket now, make sure it's down for the count where it's supposed to be, and you can see when my fingers are in it, the end of this pocket lands right here, so not even at the tip of the bag. So nothing will ever go under the bag. It just lands in there perfectly. Then our slip pocket back here
is nice and sealed. It does go under the bag like this. You could have sealed that with a stitch if you wanted, but I didn't bother with that. I just left it open because, you just put a cell phone in it. And then we're going to close the zipper, and there we have the outside of the bag. So let's get to working on the strap. In the beginning, we cut two 4-inch strips. This is what we need for our strap. We're going to go ahead and take these, and we're going to put them right sides together. So I'm going to take one like this, and I'm going to take the other like this and lay it on there, and I'm going to sew, oops, let's put it away from the selvage, from this tip corner up here down to this corner right here, creating a diagonal seam, and I'll be right back. I'm using red thread through this whole thing, but you can see I have my diagonal seam. I'm going to go ahead now and trim away a 1/4-inch seam on this, and that's just going to go in my scraps, as well as I'm going to cut away those two little pieces sticking out just like this. Don't need that. And I'm going to take this over to the iron, and I am going to spread this open and press my seam open just like this. And we're going to press that at the ironing board, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're here at the ironing board, pressing this open just like this, making sure it stays nice and flat. My iron was not on all the way, which usually happens, but in between this, my ironing board is 64 inches. 64, 65 inches about is the proper size for a crossbody strap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the selvage beyond the end of my table here. So it's sticking out about 1 inch over there. And then I'm going to come to this closest end right here at the end of my table. You can see my hand here, but you can't see what I'm doing. And I'm going to come about 1 inch further than that and fold it over at the edge of my table. So I'm coming over about this far, and I am actually going to chop that end off. So while it's folded in half, I'm just chopping the end off, and I cut off about, I don't know, 16, 10, 12, about 10, 12, 13, 14, about 15 inches off. All right. So let's press this. And what we're going to do is I'm going to press these two ends right here in about 1/2 inch. It really doesn't matter because they're going to get hidden in, and there's really no exact science to the size of this thing. And then I'm going to go ahead to this end, and I'm really just going to lop off this selvage as straight as I can. I'm going to fold that down over about, I don't know, 1/4 to 1/2 inch, somewhere around there. I'm going to press that down just like that. And now this whole entire thing, we're going to press in half like we would with binding so we can find our center mark. So we're going to press the whole thing in half, and then, well, open it back up and then press the two sides into each other. That way we have a marking where we're going to lay our interfacing. So let's go ahead and do that in fast forward. So the leftover interfacing, I'm just going to go ahead and chop it right here. Where'd oh, there it is, in front of my face. All right, chop it right there. I'm just going to fold this in half, and I want to cut some 2-inch strips, but not exactly 2-inch. I'm going to go almost before the 2-inch. As you can see, it is kind of on the 2-inch mark. Like literally, it is almost 2 inches. So you can see there's a little bit of room. I just need the folding room because when you fold the fabric, it kind of sits in that place, and the fabric is folded right now. So again, I am literally going to the almost 2-inch mark, but not quite it. I'm saving room on the sides for the fold of the fabric. So there's 2, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut 1 more off of this. So we're going to go to the almost 2 mark again, and I forgot to put you guys back the regular size. Look at that. I'm going to go to the almost 2 again and cut 1 more strip. That's all I need, I think. Sometimes I need more, but I usually just go by eye with all this stuff. All right, just like that. So I should have 2 long and 1 shorter piece. We're going to roll this back up and go back to the ironing board. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start on this end because it's closer to where I'm standing at the moment. I'm going to fold my end open. I'm going to stick this 1 piece down in that center, and as you can see, it's leaving me plenty of folding room. I'm going to stick this in there, leave it right there. I'm going to move that cord out of the way. I'm going to come down here and insert the next one. I'm going to butt it right up to each other so you can see they are literally butted right up. I'm going to go down and butt up this next one, which should be the right length. Oh, it's short. I'm going to go into my scraps and grab out a little 1.5 inch piece because I'm short by about 1.5 inches. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of smooth it out, fold it in half, take the iron, and I turned my steam off so that I don't burn my fingers doing this. Just going to heat it up, just like this. I'm going to adjust the whole thing. Just going to keep nicely in there, making sure that these next 2 are butted up nicely. I'm going to start heating those, just like this. And then adjust it some more, folding it back over. Just like that. And then finishing the rest of it off. Now the only thing left to do is fold it back in half like this and repress in half. And for this, I'm going to turn my steam back on because I want it to be so hot it stays closed. As you can see, it is so hot, it is staying closed. Making sure that it's nice and lined up. Put the rest of it on the ironing board. Continue on folding it in half. Making sure they're lined up. You don't want to cross over because then when you go to top stitch, you'll end up off. Coming to the end right here. Just like that. So now let's sew it. All right, so we have the walking foot on. It is still folded in half. I have my open side facing me. I have the walking foot on. I'm afraid to use this thing because last time it was going up and down that it unscrewed my needle and my needle came flying out at me. It was still connected though, which was kind of weird. Anyway, I'm going to line this up 1/8 of an inch away, and I'm going to start taking a couple stitches and then back stitch. I'm going to come right to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And it really came off because my stitch length is kind of big. And now I'm going to back stitch this direction. And I am going to put the whole thing on my lap, and I am going to take my chance and zoom through this. I literally get it to where I want. I put my first finger on one side, my middle finger on the other side of it, using my hand to kind of keep a speed. And I literally just zoom like this. right up to the edge. One more stitch, right there. Turn it and stitch right off. Oops, because I got to go down the other side real quick. I don't know why I even stitched right off, but oh well. Let's turn it around and do the opposite side now, the side that's not stitched. I'm just going to back stitch right here and do the same thing. Come right up to that edge, back stitched and then stitched off, and I'm going to trim my threads right here. And now it should be stitched on the top and the sides and the bottom. There should not be able to be any opening. Just run your fingers through, make sure you caught the whole entire thing in your seam, which I did. There is no openings, nothing's gonna fall apart. Going all the way down, and it looks good, 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 good. Okay, so now let's put the strap ends on it. So while I sit here, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna take one side, doesn't matter which side, and I'm gonna take my sliding thing, my adjuster strap sliding part, and I'm going to stick my strap into one side of it and then knock the thing to the bottom and go through the other side like this. And then I'm going to leave a little hangover. This is quite a big hangover. I'm going to shorten it just a little bit, just like that. And now I am going to stitch a square on here. I am not using any rivets or anything with this project, so I'm just going to stitch a square. And what I do is I hold this to where I can stitch. I put my other foot back on, adjust it just right, and I stitch it right here, and then I back stitch. And then I'm going to stitch back and forth like 3 times so that it stays. Some people might say it's sloppy. I think it looks just fine. Snip away my excess thread, and then I'm going to go, that was as close as I could get to the adjuster strap piece, and now I'm going to stitch on that edge where I already had stitched. We're going to go on that, back and forth quite a few times. And then right off the edge. And then the next, I'm just going to stitch on the sides as far up as I can. Just one stitch. I don't need to back stitch anywhere on here, just at the start and stop. All right, let's snip that thread as well. Right there and right there. And now let's stitch the other side right here. So again, I'm just going to put it right on my stitch and then come as close as I can, which should be plenty of space. And then snip my starting and cutting threads so that it's nice and clean. So it should have, oops, there's one thread I missed this whole entire time. There we go. So it should be now connected. Now the next step is to adjust, to put a lobster claw on it. All right, now that it's on there, keeping this facing up right here, we're going to come and flatten this whole thing out while I'm sitting here, just like this. I'm going to take my lobster claw and slide it on from my, I want it in my left or my right hand. Slide it on here and pull this through. It should be flat. There should be no wrinkles, creases, or folds. Okay, go up enough until you can slide your end into one side like this. Pull it through and then slide it through
the other side, just like that. And then it should adjust the whole entire thing with my clip on one end, just like this. That's facing up, and we're going to come to this side, just keeping it nice and flat. You can see I'm not turning it or nothing. I'm keeping it flat. We're going to put this with my hand facing down, facing up, sorry, and then fold it on through. So again, keep it straight, hold the thing up, put it through the hole, and then we're going to do the same procedure we did when we put the slider on. We're just going to stitch close to right here. And I'm going to go back and forth a few times. Snip away my start. And then I'm going to go to the bottom edge on my 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to also stitch on that. Back and forth like 3 times. Right off the edge. And I'm going to snip all of my loose threads, clean it all up, right there on the edge. They come right off. And now it's not going anywhere either. So let's attach it to the bag and be done. Here is our bag. Here is our strap. We're going to take one side, connect it to the other, and the other side, and connect it to the other. And now we have a bag. And these things will naturally go to whatever side they want to, helping the bag stay flat against your skin. I liked it better this way, doing it this way, than having it the hooks come from above the zipper. I didn't like that idea, so I went with this. They work just fine. They stick out a little, but oh well. So the next step for me to do is just go through and pick all the little tiny threads. But for now, we have a nice working adjustable strap. Make it as long or as short as we want, just like this. So it could be nice and short or long. And here is the adorable custom bag that nobody else has. And I literally have to sit and pull everything. So inside the pocket is the accent fabric, and it's nice and deep, the front pocket. Then we got the rear slip pocket again. Again, everything's facing right side up except for the underside of this. It is facing right side down. So when you're looking at it, this is right side and that's wrong side, but you really can't tell from looking at it because the outside of the bag is right side up. Then when you open your bag, the back side should have a zipper pocket. Again, it's the same color as the lining on the inside of that pocket because we were using the extra cutoffs. And then on the opposite side should have the 2 slip pockets, which are the accent fabric again. So, and it should be nice and stand up all on its own. And it turns out to be 9.5 inches tall by 9 inches wide by 3 inches deep. That is the size of this bag. So there we have it. I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you. Bye.